You remember when you got her? You had hours and hours to just drive and dream. You spent your Saturdays fixing whatever needed fixing just to keep her running right. 20 years later, isn't it time you two got reacquainted? When you're ready, we're here. Because at LMC Truck, we know that while time may have passed, your passion for her never faded. Get her back on the road where she and you belong.
Now you're watching Gearz, brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road.
You know, when it comes to aging, there's two schools of thought. The first is that things get better with age, and the other is that things get worse with age. But every once in a while, a company or a product comes along that seems impervious to the aging process. I mean, they start out great and they just stay great for years, decades, centuries. And obviously, finding a company or a product like that as an example, it's pretty rare. But there's one right in front of you. Because 2019 marks the 100th year that Cornwell Tools has been making professional-grade tools, making them America's oldest and best tool company. But don't take my word for it. Let's let history do the talking. 100 years ago, in 1919, America was a different place. There was no computers or internet. There was no television. Movies were silent. And the main mode of transportation was the horse, because the automobile was a fairly new invention. Fortunately, a young blacksmith named Eugene Cornwell saw the need for tools that would allow people to work on these newfangled machines that were always breaking down.
And he started out manufacturing punches and chisels, then later he gravitated to building assembly tools for the new car manufacturers.
And Cornwell Tools was born with one goal in mind: to make the best tools on the market. By the roaring 20s, Cornwell had competition as other tool manufacturers began to spring up, but it didn't matter. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing and airplanes were all the rage. And Cornwell Tools were the natural choice for mechanics to not only build those wacky flying machines, but to help keep them in the air. By the 1930s, you couldn't buy alcohol, but you could buy Cornwell Tools, and it's a good thing, because with the automobile becoming the getaway vehicle of choice for some of the nation's most notorious gangsters, it was important that the police and the FBI had cars that would run with the bad guys. And Cornwell Tools helped make that happen. When the 40s hit, so did World War II. And it was all hands on deck as the American war machine jumped into action to build tanks, trucks, jeeps, and aircraft for the war effort. And it wasn't just men using Cornwell Tools now. Now, women as well were cranking bolts and tightening fasteners in the plants and factories. When the 1950s rolled around, it brought the optimism and joy that sprang up after the war. And with the birth of hot rodding and rock and roll setting the tone, garages began to hum all across the nation, because it was the first time that the average guy started to work on his own cars. And of course, they wanted the professional grade tools that Cornwell made. The 1960s brought the British invasion and a completely different type of revolution. But there was an even bigger storm brewing, the muscle car. And by the end of the 60s, the whole nation seemed to have gone completely car crazy. And everybody needed tools, from the professional drag racer to the local beatnik. And supplying those tools was Cornwell. The 70s, 80s, and 90s were the decades where more and more people got into working on cars and trucks. And cars got more sophisticated as well. So the demand for professional level tools in garages and shops continued to grow as people began to abandon the cheap discount tools that you found in department stores or home improvement centers. That led more and more gearheads to the local Cornwell truck. From the 2000s on to today, Cornwell has continued to find ways to blend modern technology with old school quality, and that's not always easy.
So you're taking a product that's running on a technology that's 100 years old, and then you put it on a vertical machining center that is 3 months old, and you start machining that product down to a half of a thousandth.
They still use the best steel for their tools, and their forging process hasn't changed much over the decades. It's still done by hand and still done using real fire and giant presses and American sweat. Of course, machines have been upgraded to make certain jobs easier over the years, but tools are still stamped and pressed the same way. And the final shaping, fitting, and assembly is still done by hand. The tools are still delivered on tool trucks by individual dealers like they've always been. This allows the dealer to cater to the individual needs of each mechanic or technician.
So it's a bit set. Looks like a normal set, but the unique part, if you pull them up, it's all cut in half.
So they get what they want when they need it, with no guesswork and no downtime. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where we are telling the amazing story of America's oldest tool company, Cornwell Tools, and how they literally helped build this nation over the last 100 years. But there's a lot more to Cornwell today than the simple hand tools they started out with 100 years ago. For starters, they pretty much invented the idea of the tool delivery truck. And what better way to acknowledge that than build the SR71 Rapid Tool Express, the world's fastest tool delivery truck. The heart of this machine is a 1,000 horsepower big block Ford featuring John Cossey's new SR71 heads and an 871 blower from the blower shop. We laid it to rest in a custom Roadster shop chassis and created a wild exhaust system with stainless works that looks like it belongs on an actual SR71 Blackbird. Then the whole painted and powder-coated chassis was tucked under the restored body of the '59 Ford panel. And a custom interior and bodywork was added to make it as unique as its namesake, the SR71 Blackbird. And when we loaded up the partially finished Express and unveiled it alongside Sergeant Rock at the National Tool Rally, the response was overwhelming. And this was without the fins or the hood or the logo on it yet. But the thing that blew everyone's mind was when we decided to show off the incredible strength and durability of the new Platinum Series toolboxes. What better way to do that than to set a 9,000-pound truck on them? So out came the mobile lifts to get Sergeant Rock into the air. Then 4 Platinum boxes were rolled into place. And the big beast was lowered down on top of them. And just in case you're thinking that these are special fake boxes made to do this for publicity, you can see that these are stock, off-the-shelf boxes, and there is no distortion or deflection at the top, and all the drawers still open and close perfectly. But what was even more amazing was the staggering amount of tools that Cornwell now carries that you can put in those boxes. You'll find welders, body tools, diagnostic tools, new technology, old favorites, everything you can imagine and some things you can't imagine. It's all in your catalog, and it's the best of the best stuff. And it's that commitment to quality that makes Cornwell America's premier tool company. 100 years, man, and still the choice of professionals.
And now, Liftec, brought to you by Skyjacker Suspensions, because the ride is the journey.
If you drive a truck or an SUV, you have probably thought about putting a lift on it at one time or another, and that's great, because they can all benefit from a little more height and a little bigger tire. But the biggest question that we get is, what is the best lift that I can put on my vehicle? Well, that's like asking who makes the best pizza, man. You got to be more specific before anybody can answer that question. So we're going to take a few minutes, show you how to be more specific so you can answer that question. Okay, first you have to decide how you're going to use the vehicle. And don't lie to yourself here, because if you're concerned about gas mileage, you don't need a big lifted vehicle with huge wheels and tires. Also, if you want a daily driver, well, you don't need a hardcore off-road suspension. That's just a waste of money. Not to mention that they don't get around in traffic very well. On the other hand, if you want something that's hardcore and you're into that, well, you don't want a little tiny 2-inch lift and dinky wheels and tires. You'll just end up getting stuck or breaking stuff. So, deciding what you want, realistically how it's going to look, is the first thing. Now, once you've done that, then you can start shopping for lifts. And you'll want to go with a company that has a reputation for quality products and good engineering that has the options that you may want, because it's not just the look that you're after. It has to be safe and reliable. For example, I put this 6-inch lift on this old Dodge over 15 years ago, and it's been used as a daily driver and a shop truck ever since. It has been unmercifully thrashed, beaten. It's been used to haul stuff, pull trailers, and not once has the suspension given me problems, broken, or been hard to align. And even though the road salt has been rough on the powder coating, it still runs down the road like a new truck. I wish the paint and interior held up as well as the suspension. So, as you can see, it's really pretty simple. Number one, you have got to be realistic in deciding how you're going to use the vehicle and how you want it to look. And number two, you have to pick a company with a great reputation that makes good products and has a lot of options. If you do this, you're going to be able to decide what is the best lift for your vehicle. Now, as far as who makes the best pizza, we're still working on that one.
And now, Detail Tech, brought to you by Brush Hero, the ultimate detailing tool.
One of the first upgrades that most people do to their vehicles is to put on custom wheels and tires, because a nice set of wheels and tires can set the whole personality of a vehicle and transform it into something you've always dreamed of owning. But keeping those wheels and tires cleaned and polished can quickly become a nightmare, because your wheels are subject to all kinds of road dirt, brake dust, and whatever else you may be running into on any given day. So we're going to walk through some tips and tricks on how to detail your wheels and keep them looking like new. Now, obviously, the first step is to just clean the wheels. And there's all kinds of cleaners on the market, and you can take those cleaners, put them on a mitt or on a rag, and go to work on the wheel. Now, on a wheel like this with a lot of flat surfaces, that's going to be great. But if you've got something more intricate like a wire spoke wheel, well, after about 20 minutes, if you're trying to get your fingers in and out of each one of those spokes, your hands are going to look like this. You're going to be cussing. I strongly suggest you invest in one of these rotating brushes. This will allow you to get soap and water and a rotating brush down into each and every one of these little nooks and crannies, places you will never be able to get your fingers. This will save your sanity and your fingers. Now, what we're going to do is clean up half of this wheel just to show you what a difference a thorough cleaning can make. Okay, once the wheels are clean, you're ready to move on to the next step. And if your wheels are painted or powder coated or chrome plated, you're pretty lucky, because now all you have to do is put on a coat of wax to protect them and you're good to go. However, if your wheels are metal, like aluminum or magnesium or steel, you might think they look good, but if you look really closely, there are scratches in that metal that makes it hazy. They don't polish like they used to. You have to buff those out. Now, there's all kinds of polishes on the market, so those polishes combined with your finger work is the only thing that's going to take that out. Now, at this point, a couple of things should be pretty obvious. Number one, polishing a wheel makes a huge difference in the way it looks. Also, there's a tremendous amount of oxidation and scratches that need to come out of an aluminum wheel to make it polished like it should. Now, protecting an aluminum or metal wheel is a little different than a painted or powder-coated wheel. You're going to want to use something like this shark hide because it seals the pores of the metal so you don't have to polish it like this every time you wash the vehicle. All right, that takes care of polishing the wheels. Now let's talk about tires. Okay, if you're one of those guys that likes to keep a tire dressing on your tire, don't just take the dressing and spray it on everything and let it just drip down, because that just makes a mess and you don't want to have to clean that stuff off your rim, especially if you just polished it. No, the best way to do this is just take a rag, spray it on the rag, and then wipe the tire. This way you can control exactly how much dressing goes on there and how it's going to look. And that's it. You're ready to go show off your wheels again. Well, you know, after we polish the other half of this one.
And now, Parts Bin.
If you have a 2008 or newer GM car, truck, or SUV with a V8 engine, and you'd like to get the power advantages of running E85, there's some good news and bad news for you. The good news is the computer in your vehicle is already mapped from the factory to run as a flex fuel vehicle. The bad news is you can't run E85 unless you activate that dormant system. So you're screwed, right? No, because Advanced Fuel Dynamics has what they call the ProFlex Direct Fit system, and it allows you to activate that system. Now check this out. It's very simple. You have a sensor, you have a quick disconnect fuel line, you have a special wiring harness, and a fuel link, and the whole installation takes about 30 minutes. And once you put this on, you'll be able to run either 100% gasoline, 100% ethanol, or any blend in between with no special tuning and no switching the mapping. So you can pull into the pump, fill up with whatever you want, except diesel, and enjoy the benefits of a true flex fuel vehicle. And the only way you're going to do that is with Advanced Fuel Dynamics. If you've been around the car world very much, you know that slot car racing is making a huge comeback. And it's mostly because of companies like Scale Electric. Because not only have they been around since the beginning, but they haven't stayed in the past. Now they have brought things up to date. As you can see, they have all kinds of new car models to choose from, different track options, digital options, all to give you a unique, modern slot car racing experience. Check it out. You like muscle cars or Trans Am Series race cars or classic TV and movie cars? They got them. You like exotic sports cars or Le Mans race cars? Well, they got those too. You like crazy stuff? There's plenty of that. And if you want to crush the competition, well, they got special vehicles to do that too. And if high detail is your thing, some cars have headlights, taillights, and Scale Electric even has an app with multiple functions and sounds for a true racing experience. The best part is you can start with a basic starter kit and build from there. So you're not going to spend a fortune, even if you want to. If you want a really cool racing experience in your shop or man cave, then you got to have a slot car track. Forget the pool, forget the ping pong, because this is only limited by your imagination. If you work with any kind of bare metal at all, from copper to brass to aluminum, steel, stainless steel, doesn't matter. You know that you've got to get some sort of a coating on it as quickly as possible to keep it from rusting or oxidizing. Now, in the past, the way of thinking was grab some clear coat and just spray paint it on there. Fortunately, things have changed since Shark Hide came out with this metal protectant. Because Shark Hide is not a paint and it's not a traditional clear coat. It's a sealer that wipes on with a cloth and seals the metal and prevents rust or oxidation. The problem is wiping Shark Hide on by hand with a diaper is a little tedious, especially if you're doing a big surface or something with a lot of nooks and crannies, like a 3-deuce intake that's still rough cast. Good luck getting Shark Hide and a diaper up into these areas. So to solve that problem, you can now get Shark Hide in an aerosol can. So you can just spray that stuff on and get great coverage. If you have metal, you gotta protect it. The way to protect it is to seal it. The best way to seal it is with Shark Hide.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Jeff Coop from Waterford, Michigan, and his project is not a car or a truck, it's a motorcycle. Now, he's got a 1973 Honda Bobber. Check this out. Yeah, that's cool. Now, he said this project was hatched a long time ago because in the 90s, a friend of his had a 70s Honda Chopper that he tried to buy, and his friend said no. He said other things too, but I can't say them. He just said no. So Jeff said, all right, I'll build my own. So the search was on for his own project, and in 2013 he found it in the shape of a 1970 A-Man hardtail frame. Check it out. Now, from then on, he started sanding and building and collecting parts, putting this thing together, and 10 months later, he hit the starter, the thing fired up, and he's been riding it ever since. Now, he says that this project never ends. They never do. But he says he keeps improving and modifying it every year, and he just loves it. So, Jeff, to recognize such a cool project, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. We're going to give you one of these bead rollers, which is the roller and a whole bunch of dies, so you can make some custom panels for that motorcycle. Also, we're going to give you one of our Gearz t-shirts because you're obviously a gearhead. And then we're going to give you one of our project planning books because you've used a lot of parts, done a lot of things to that motorcycle, and this is the only way to keep track of it, keep yourself on budget. Also, we're going to give you a copy of Wheel Hub magazine because this is a coffee table level book that shows you what's really going on in shops and garages across the nation. Then we're also going to give you a gift card from LMC Truck because they've got so many things in their catalogs, I guarantee there's something that you can use on that motorcycle. And then finally, since you were featured on What Are You Working On, we're going to give you one of our What Are You Working On tow trucks, because everybody should have their own tow truck. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you want to get in on this, get your project featured on the show, you got to send it in to us. Go to the website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into What Are You Working On. The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation so you can stream any of our episodes commercial-free. Finally, don't forget to like us on Facebook so you can get some behind-the-scenes footage of our weekly web series, Shifting Gears. All right, that wraps it up for us today, which means that it's time for you to get out there, find yourself a project, and start working on it. Also, don't forget, you can catch past episodes of Gearz on Amazon Prime now, just in case you've missed some. All right, get out of here. We'll see you next time.